Welcome, and thank you for attending today's edition in a series of webinars designed to bring you updates on new solutions and trends in the IT marketplace. Today, we're going to discuss how HPE can help you overcome SMB infrastructure challenges with new HCI capabilities. I'm sure you will enjoy our brief 20-minute content today and come away with some ideas for improving your IT's impact to the business. My name is Heather Walls, and I'm delighted to host this webinar today. I am the Sales and Programme Lead for SMB here in the UK for HPE. I also have the pleasure of being your Q&A leader at the end of the session. So, whilst reviewing your presentation, if you do have any questions, please enter them in the Q&A function box on the webinar interface. I will do my best to answer your questions quickly as the webinar goes on, or to answer them at the end of the presentation to share with everybody. With that, let's start our presentation by Jim Raposa. Jim is the VP and Principal Analyst from Aberdeen. Jim, I'll let you introduce yourself, who Aberdeen are, and then get into the details of today's webinar.
Thanks. As I said, I'm a principal analyst at Aberdeen, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with Aberdeen, or if this is your first time running into us, we are a research firm, an analyst firm. A little differently, that we are not, we are vendor agnostic, we are product agnostic. We're not here to talk about or rank solutions. What we do is we survey our community, we talk to businesses like yours, and ask you about how you're using technology. What are the challenges that are causing pain points? What are the drivers pushing you to improve? And we also check to see who's doing well, who has the most availability, the best uptime, the highest satisfaction, who's the most innovative and agile. And once we've identified those leaders, we're able to see what they're doing that makes them leaders. What are the technologies they're using? What are the strategies they're following? And we're able to use that to make recommendations on what other businesses can do to become leaders. So that out of the way, let's talk about hyperconverged infrastructure, or HCI, and the impact it's having across the industry, and also specifically for small to mid-sized businesses. So as you can see here in our research, we see currently that 35% of all organizations are now using HCI or hyperconverged infrastructures. And over the time we've been tracking this, this has doubled in the last 2 years. So there's been pretty significant growth in this. It's kind of interesting because when I talk to people, they still tend to think of HCI or hyperconverged as a really, really new, cutting edge, bleeding edge technology. But it has been evolving. It's, the technology itself is nearly 10 years old, and which we're going to get to a little further and what that means. But even if you look at some of the more recent hype cycles in, like, say, the last 3 or 4 years of hyperconverged, it's still been around for a while, and it's really getting into its sort of maturity phase, which means, different things on how businesses are adopting it and how hyperconverged infrastructure themselves are changing. But definitely we are seeing a lot of growth and a lot of interest in it for very specific reasons. Hyperconverged brings a lot of value to a business no matter their size, whether you're a small to mid-sized business or a large enterprise. It really allows you to unify all of your infrastructure, core infrastructure, storage, compute, networking, bring really software-defined intelligence to it, and really make your infrastructure more ready for the innovations of today, to be ready for hybrid cloud and microservices, and just being, an innovative and agile business. But there are factors on how HCI is doing that, and really what type of HCI you're using. So talking about one of the things we do in our research is to look for drivers. And so here what we did is we looked at SMBs and asked them what were the top things pushing them to modernize their infrastructure. What were the things driving them to improve and innovate? So no real surprises here. You see that the top driver is the high growth in data. Everybody, no matter what you do, you're having more data coming into your company, more data coming into your business, and more data that you have to use. So you have this flood of data. You're trying to gain intelligence out of it. You're trying to analyze it. You're trying to scale to support it. You're trying to use it in applications. Just in general, data is driving a lot of the innovation and improvement in data centers for SMBs and for all businesses, really. Also, they're being driven by management, and this really comes down to competition. You need to keep up with the Joneses to a certain degree. You need to be innovative and be cutting edge and be leveraging new technologies that your competitors are using. So that's another driver. And obviously regulatory requirements. We're all international businesses to a certain degree nowadays, and we all have to deal with different regulatory directives on protecting data, on keeping sensitive data protected, protecting privacy. And if you're trying to do that using a legacy system or something not designed for modern technologies, it's going to be a lot harder. You're going to have a harder time protecting that data and managing it. So really improving to modern infrastructures like HCI really can help businesses meet those regulatory requirements. So those are the drivers. So what are the challenges? What are the pain points we've seen pushing SMBs in their IT infrastructure? What are the things that are causing them issues? So one of the top issues for every business out there is security issues. And then this can be tough too. When you talk about legacy issues that can cause security problems, it really can be a real problem in the modern infrastructure when you look at not just problems within your own business and with your own IT infrastructure, but external issues, whether it is popular security products being infected with malware, whether it's DDoS attacks on core parts of the infrastructure, even just, core cloud or connectivity systems going down. If you have sort of a legacy infrastructure that's not unified, that's not cloud native, that's not hybrid ready, you're going to be a lot more susceptible to these security problems. We also see one of the big challenges is the increases in infrastructure costs. Keeping up with the Joneses costs money. Even, businesses thought moving to public cloud would save them money, but again, if you're doing it wrong, it can actually cost you money, and even worse, it can limit your ability to take advantage of innovations like hybrid cloud, like Kubernetes and containers. It's not just a cost issue, it's building the right thing, using the right workloads in the right place. We find if you're not doing those things, you're actually going to lead to increased costs and have limits in your infrastructure capabilities. Probably one of the biggest challenges for SMBs is that lack of expertise and information when it comes to new technologies like hyperconverged infrastructure, like containers, like hybrid cloud. It's hard enough for if you're a large enterprise with a lot of resources at your demand to stay up with all of these new technologies. And for SMBs, it's just that much harder to keep up with these new technologies. And that really means, one, you need good partners who understand those technologies, and you need the right solutions that lower complexity, that make it easier to deploy, to make it easier to do a lot of the key things you need to do to grow your infrastructure, to improve, to innovate, be more agile. So this leads to what we're seeing now in hyperconverged infrastructures. I talked at the beginning how, while this seems like it's a real bleeding edge technology, it's been around for a while. And, hyperconverged infrastructures can date back to around 10 years. And if you think about it, if you had a smartphone in your pocket that was 10 years old, or even 7 or 8 years old, or 5 years old, it would seem like an ancient piece of technology, and you would definitely be moving to improve and innovate and upgrade that technology. And we're seeing the same thing in HCI. That first generation of hyperconverged infrastructures was very innovative and very cutting edge for its time. But as with anything, we need a next generation. We need a new version of HCI that is designed for the needs of today. That's designed to work in hybrid cloud environments. That's designed to be leverage AI and other machine learning tools and just intelligence and automation to be agile enough for today's technology needs and for today's businesses. And when businesses implement these, and especially when SMBs implement these newer, modern, next generation HCI solutions, we're really seeing in our research that they gain a lot, that they gain agility, that they gain increased flexibility, and that they're really able to more easily grow to meet their demands of modern technology. So what happens when SMBs implement these next generation HCIs? Well, one, they become more innovative. And we talked about the keys, the importance of leveraging new technologies, being, keeping up with the Joneses, being more innovative, and especially how key this is for SMBs. An SMB with utilizing new technologies really has the power of the biggest companies, the biggest enterprises at their fingertips. It really makes them like those big companies. And we see that when SMBs implement HCI, once they implement hyperconverged, it really makes them more innovative across the board. So here we see that they're 40% more likely than their peers without hyperconverged to be taking advantage of containers and microservices. They're building these next generation intelligent applications. They're 40% more likely to use flash storage. They have those faster, more scalable, more intelligent storage infrastructures at their demand. And most importantly, they're 45% more likely to be utilizing hybrid cloud. In our research, we find hybrid cloud to be one of the most important evolutions in IT infrastructures. We call it the new normal. Basically, if you're too much in the public cloud or too much on-prem, you're not really taking advantage of today's technologies. You're not being agile, and you're not putting your workloads to their best use. An effective hybrid cloud isn't about just having public and private. It's about having this kind of unified infrastructure that allows you to run the right workload in the right place at the right time. And it really is, being effectively able to use hybrid cloud is really tied to having a good hyper-converged infrastructure across the board. We've seen when businesses have modern, updated, hyper-converged infrastructures, they have a much better hybrid cloud implementation, and they're seeing a lot of success. What kind of success are they seeing? Well, this is key. When we look at our data, we see that businesses with next-gen hyper-converged infrastructures, and specifically SMBs, that implement these kind of modern, cutting-edge version 2.0 HCI, see some pretty significant benefits. They are 75% more likely to see improvements in business continuity. Their systems stay up, they're reliable, they're resilient. They're 31% more likely to report improved data storage capabilities. They can scale to meet needs. They can protect their data. They just have better data management across the board. They're handling that flood of data that we saw in our early challenge slide. They're seeing improvements in performance. They're 37% more likely to see improvements both in storage and application performance. That's key. I think a lot of businesses don't realize how much your infrastructure impacts things like application performance. By being agile, by being innovative, you're really able to boost your entire performance of all of your applications and services. So kind of just to summarize some of the benefits we've seen when SMBs transform their IT by taking advantage of these next generation hyper-converged infrastructure solutions. Again, you're better able to innovate. You're better able to leverage new technologies like hybrid cloud, like containers. As we saw on that last slide, you see much better business continuity. You keep those vital service applications running and available at high availability, and don't suffer those costly downtimes. You have faster performance across the board in storage and in application performance. You're able to leverage things like artificial intelligence to gain better predictability and agility in your entire IT infrastructure. And overall, you see increased data efficiency and storage scalability across your IT infrastructure. So our research, it really shows that when small to mid-sized businesses take this step to upgrade not just their IT infrastructure, but to upgrade to these kind of current generation hyper-converged infrastructures, they see some pretty significant benefits. And now I'm going to pass the baton over to our speaker from HPE, who's going to show us some of their latest advancements in hyperconverged infrastructure.
Hi, my name's Tony Stranick. I'm a Chief Technologist at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. And I'm here to talk to you today a little about some of the innovation that we're driving in hyperconverged infrastructure. But just before I start that, I want to relate to you a little story about how I had to buy a new shirt for my in-laws' golden wedding anniversary. So I had to buy a shirt, and given the current situation, I was going to be buying it online. So I found a shirt I liked, I ordered it, it turned up, and the shirt was perfect, apart from one thing. It might have been the shirt or it might have been me, but there was an arm problem. My arms were quite a bit longer than the sleeves on the shirt, and I had this issue. So my wife, being very practical, she just said, well, just order the next size up. Oh, okay. Yeah, shipped one back and got the new one. And this fixed my arm problem. But it also introduced a new problem. The size of the new shirt, actually, if I put it on, the arms were fine, but the rest of the shirt made it look like I was basically wearing a tent. So I've moved the problem, I've fixed the sleeves, and I just created myself another issue. Now, I could have gone to a tailor and spent a load of money trying to fix this, but do you know what? It's far easier just to find a new supplier and go and buy a new shirt. So that's what I did. Now, how does this relate to hyperconverged infrastructure? Well, let me just a recap on where we are with hyperconverged infrastructure today. So we know this concept of buying flexible, consumable chunks of compute and storage gives huge advantages. Yeah, it enables us to increase productivity. Yeah, no longer are we sitting there having to wait for things to be racked and connected up and power to be put in. I've just got this flexible resource pool that is there and available to me. And it means that I can make myself far more productive. But also, because I've got these flexible resource pools, in theory, I can drive down the cost because I can drive up utilization. So my cost comes down. And ultimately, the most important thing is that my end users are that much happier. And they're much happier because when they sit and ask for some new compute, a new server, some new storage, I can give it to them almost instantaneously. This gives them the luxury of time. And time to them is valuable. Getting time back is really important. They can get on with projects that much more quicker. Now, as we look a little bit further into hyperconverged, we're starting to see an issue arise. Now, let me just describe what that is. In hyperconverged, I have my chunks of compute and storage. And these nodes can be plugged together. They can give me high levels of availability. They can give me all those things that we've come to know and love from hyperconverged. And, you know, when a new workload comes along, I just get another node, I plug it into the side, and I immediately have available more compute and more storage. But what happens if that new workload is particularly storage intensive? It needs more data than it needs compute. I'm now adding a new node. I'm going to use all the storage capacity, but what about the compute? I don't need it. I've just added some resource that I'm not actually going to consume. So this is now breaking that utilization, which is what I thought I was going to get. So at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, we've been thinking about this challenge and how can we improve it? Well, actually, the answer is quite simple. It's actually give a higher level of granularity to the compute and the storage. Break up, enable smaller chunks. So break up so that I can have small chunks of compute alongside small chunks of storage. Have these connected together. And should I have a requirement that comes along, a workload that needs more capacity, I just add in a chunk of capacity. Should I have another one that comes along that wants more compute, I can just add in more compute to my matrix here. We're calling this disaggregated. It means I've separated my compute from my storage, and it gives me a higher level of granularity for being able to expand and drive up that utilization. But all of this doesn't detract from the HCI characteristics that we have. What we like to talk about is a 15-minute rack to app window. From the moment that hardware goes in the rack, it should be available to applications within 15 minutes. This is a 93% improvement over traditional deployments. Not only that, but I maintain my cloud-like experience for my end users. It's there, it's available when they want them. And finally, this whole infrastructure is supported through our InfoSight artificial intelligence engine. What does that mean? Through InfoSight means it's constantly looking at the infrastructure, looking and monitoring and noting when and anticipating problems before that they arrive. This helps us drive a 99.9999, that's 6 nines level of availability. But on top of that, it also enables us to do things like capacity planning and tailoring to that demand so that you know ahead of time when you're going to want that compute and that storage. So we're calling this hyperconverged infrastructure 2.0. Not only does it have all those flexibility of traditional HCI, it also adds in scalability, which is the thing that is going to solidify your cost savings and really drive those levels of utilization that you wanted. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks for listening to us. If you want to know more, please follow the link below this or contact HPE or one of our suppliers.
Thanks. That was a great, really interesting and informative demo, and really an opportunity to see some of these latest hyperconverged infrastructure capabilities. So thanks for the demo. And now I'd like to turn it back over to our host.
Thank you, Jim. That was very interesting. As a reminder, you can place your questions in the Q&A function box on the webinar interface. Whilst you're submitting any more questions that you've got, I'll just recap a little bit on what Jim said there. It was very interesting that HCI is nearly 10 years old, and 35% of businesses are now using HCI solutions, which has doubled in the last 2 years. He had some really interesting and key stats as well. 75% of businesses are likely to see improvements in business continuity. 31% report improved data storage capabilities, and 37% see improvements in storage and application performance. He listed out the top drivers for businesses to move to modern infrastructure, such as HCI, things like the high growth in data, management directives, regulatory requirements. And he also mentioned, keeping up with the Joneses, making sure that you're competitive in your industries. And obviously, I love Tony's analogy of buying a shirt to bring to life what HCI 2.0 really is and how this helps us delight our customers. Okay, so let me look at the questions you've submitted now. Okay, so the first one that's come in is, what is DHCI? So DHCI stands for Disaggregated Hyperconverged Infrastructure, as you'll have heard from Tony. It's disaggregated to allow you to independently scale both compute and storage to meet your business and IT requirements. It's non-disruptive with industry-leading data efficiency guaranteed. And when we talk about DHCI, we talk about two other key benefits as well. These are that it's intelligently simple, it's native full-stack intelligence from storage to VMs, and policy-based automation for virtualized environments. And then it's ready for business-critical applications with absolute resiliency, with over 6 nines availability, which again you'll hear Tony have referred to in his pitch, and low latency at consistent high performance. So I hope that answers the question. So the next one. So this is about SMB. So what does HPE define as SMB? So as you'll know from Gartner, IDC, all the other analysts out there, there's different definitions of what we define as SMB. But here at HPE, we follow these analysts predominantly in terms of seat size. So we predominantly do below 1,000 seats, but we also take into account other factors. So we take into account a 360 view of the customer. So their revenues, their historical spend with HPE, their propensity to buy, as well as our propensity to sell. Okay. Oh, here's another one on GreenLake. So is HCI available on GreenLake? So yes, absolutely. For those of you who aren't aware, GreenLake is HPE's as-a-service model to bring cloud speed, agility, and flexibility to your apps and data. It's one experience, one operating model to transform the way you manage your distributed clouds for apps and data at the edge and in your data center or colo. Okay. Oh, here's another one that's come in. So Nimble DHCI and HPE SimpliVity seem similar. When should a customer look at one over the other? Okay, so these are obviously HPE's 2 HCI offerings or solutions. So like I say, we've got Nimble DHCI and SimpliVity. So when future growth is unpredictable, the customer wants to repurpose an existing investment into HPE ProLiant, so Gen 9s or above, or is requiring extreme I/O performance, DHCI is the best place to start. So where they may need to scale both compute and storage independently of each other. However, if it's multi-site, or if it's an edge deployment, if the customer is concerned by security and ransomware and values an all-in-one approach, then HPE SimpliVity is likely to be the better fit. However, please feel free to engage with your HPE account teams. Any contact points you've got into HPE, he'll be able to best advise on what is the best requirement here. Okay, one more question then that's just come in, so thank you. So what are the outcomes enabled by HPE DHCI? So you'll have heard some of these mentioned in the video by both Tony and then in the presentation by Jim. So run faster to accelerate the app and service delivery. So you'll hear Tony refer to 15 minutes from rack to app. It's got 6 nines or higher of data availability. You can optimize everything, so driving productivity and resource efficiency. And then there's some really good stats actually that I'll share with you here as well. So it's 10 times faster, it's 5 times more efficient, and it's 4 times more resilient. Brilliant. So thank you all for those questions, and hope my answers helped there. But as I mentioned, you can reach out to anyone from HPE and your account teams or people that you've got in contact with to gain more information about any of the content that you've heard here today. And likewise, you can continue to ask questions. Before we close this webinar for today then, I'd really like to request your feedback in the survey that will come up now. Please take a minute to respond and let us know if this was useful for you today. We really do endeavour to improve and continually meet the requirements, so please do let us know your feedback. And as mentioned, you can also reach out to your HPE contact to continue the conversation. So thank you all for attending. Your time is greatly appreciated, and we hope to see you at our next webinar. This will be held on Wednesday, the 7th of April, and it will be on data motion at scale, the untold story. But for now, thank you for your time and goodbye.